My wife flinched when I touched her and said, "Don't start." That night, I decided to disappear from her life. 6 months later, she saw me with another woman and broke down crying, saying, "I never stopped thinking about you." Have you ever realized that the most painful thing is not discovering a betrayal? What really shatters you is seeing how the person who is your whole world begins to behave as if your presence were a nuisance, as if the simple act of wanting closeness turned you into a burden. That specific night was when my perspective changed completely. There was no drama. There were no heated arguments. Only a silent moment in the dim light that transformed my perception of Carmen and of who I really was. We had been married for 7 years. Our house was in the suburbs of Phoenix, a simple but cozy place. We did not have luxuries, but I felt satisfied with what we had built. My job was in construction, with strenuous workdays, endless weeks, and I even had to work some Saturdays. Money was not abundant, but the bills were always paid. The pantry was full, the house was climate-controlled, we paid for streaming subscriptions, and ordered takeout every Sunday. Anyone looking at us from the outside would think everything was going well. However, behind closed doors, the situation was different. For months, everything had felt empty. I initially convinced myself it was something temporary, that work stress was overwhelming her. Maybe it was hormonal, possibly just accumulated fatigue. I decided to be understanding. I gave her space when she needed it. I prepared dinner if she was exhausted. I even gave her foot massages without her asking. Then things started to change. First, it was small details. She avoided looking at me directly. She no longer laughed with me. Hugs became mechanical gestures rather than displays of affection. Kisses turned cold, her lips almost motionless. Her body was present, but her mind was somewhere else. I decided not to insist. I thought she needed a period to reconnect. Maybe she felt overwhelmed without being able to express it. The decisive moment occurred on a particular night. It must have been around 11:30 at night. I had just finished fixing a pipe problem in the guest bathroom. Carmen was already in bed, absorbed in her cell phone, its glow illuminating her face as if that device were her only real company. I felt exhausted, not just from physical work, but also emotionally drained. I missed her deeply. I missed what we had been. I got into bed, turned off my light, and gently reached my hand toward her. I was not seeking sexual intimacy, nothing complicated. I just wanted to hold her, to make her feel my presence. I placed my hand on her waist with tenderness, being respectful. Her reaction was to tense up, subtly but perceptibly. She moved away a little and whispered with annoyance, "Do not start. Do not start." As if I represented an annoying obligation, as if the touch of my skin were an invasion, as if I were someone unpleasant she put up with because we coincidentally had the same legal last name. I remained motionless. I stayed still in the dim light, staring at the ceiling while something inside my chest crumbled in silence. She did not add anything else. She continued on her phone. After a few moments, she turned her body, giving me her back. That is how it all ended. In that instant, something inside me shut down. The love was still there, but the unconditional faith, the illusion that by waiting she would go back to being her old self, I understood something fundamental that night. I was no longer her partner. To her, I was just an annoying background noise. To be honest, it was not just that episode. It was the accumulation of everything. Her indifference to my jokes, the fact that she only touched me when she needed something from me, the excitement with which she talked to her friends compared to the apathy she showed me. I began to reflect. How long had it been since she praised me? When did she express feeling proud of me? Moreover, when was the last time our gazes met without that empty, distant expression? My memory could not find an answer. I continued to give my dedication, my understanding, my effort while she received it as something obvious, as if I were barely fulfilling the basic obligations of a husband, even though she had abandoned her role as a wife a long time ago. This is the aspect no one wants to talk about. Society judges when men leave, but they ignore the process of being progressively eliminated from your own relationship. Sleep did not come that night. I woke up early as always. I made coffee, following my routine, and I sat alone at the table. When she finally came down with her hair tied up, she walked past me as if I were transparent. No morning greeting. She did not even ask how I had slept. Simply total indifference. The most painful part of all, I still wanted her to see me. After being ignored in every possible way, I still hoped she would turn around and say, "Forgive my distance lately. We need to talk." But it did not happen. She poured her plant-based milk into her smoothie, looked at her cell phone, and went back upstairs. That is when the determination came. In complete silence, without drama, I did not confront her. I did not demand explanations. I did not beg for dialogue. I began my own withdrawal. I deleted the messages during the day asking about her well-being. I canceled the planned dinners. I no longer asked about her preferences for watching something. I stopped any attempt at physical closeness. I transformed into a shadow within my own home. The bills continued to be paid. The clothes continued to be washed and folded. My physical presence continued in the basic household tasks. However, my emotional energy, my genuine interest, all of that vanished. At first, she did not seem to notice, or maybe she noticed but did not care. What I was clear about was my plan. I was organizing my exit. It was not revenge. It was simply recognizing that I deserved something better than nightly rejections and breakfasts in complete silence. My schedule began to change. I went to the gym after work. Sometimes I had a drink with people from work. By the time I arrived, Carmen was already asleep, pretending to ignore the changes in my routine, although I am sure she perceived them. Gradually, her reaction began. The double-meaning comments arrived. "You have been going out a lot lately, have you not? I see you did not make any dinner today. It seems we do not even talk anymore." But I did not fall for the provocations. I refused to take that bait. Now she was experiencing the same emotional emptiness that I had endured for so long. She still did not fully understand it, but my process of distancing was already advanced. I was not acting with cruelty. For the first time, I was being honest with myself. When a man truly withdraws his presence, when he really pulls away, the impact is profound. It is not an act of revenge, it is emotional survival. The same woman who rejected my closeness was about to discover the feeling of losing someone who once gave everything and now offered nothing. Have you noticed what drives people crazier? It is when something they considered permanent simply disappears. Without drama, without scandal, simply absent. In silence, without complications, with coldness. That is how I proceeded. After so much time, perhaps too much, of seeking small signs of affection, of trying to connect, of extending my hand only to be rejected as if I were making a mistake, I finally stopped. But not as Carmen anticipated. Look, Carmen had assumed I was constant, predictable. She had my habits memorized. She counted on my message when I left work. She expected my question about whether she needed anything from the supermarket. She took it for granted that I would prepare dinner, that the bills would be paid, that the laundry would be folded according to her preferences. My presence had become so automatic for her, even when she had emotionally disconnected, that she probably thought I would never have the courage to leave. So I began my process. It was not a sudden stop, I simply stopped driving. My emotional disconnection came first. I no longer asked about her well-being. Her arrival time ceased to matter. Her hints and biting comments no longer provoked a response. I let them pass, without effect, without reactions. When she started with interrogations like, "Where are you going?" or "Why are you being so weird?" I avoided giving detailed explanations. I would shrug, offer a smile, and reply, "I have things to do," and leave. Arguments did not interest me. My goal was for her to experience the same abandonment I had felt. I changed where I slept. I told her I moved around a lot and preferred not to disturb her rest. The reality was my inability to share a space with someone who treated me like a stranger in my own home. First it was the couch, then the guest room. My arrivals became later and later. I took on extra work, not for financial need, but because I needed distance. I required something different from her, an environment where my mere existence was not seen as an excessive demand. The gym became my refuge. I resumed taking care of my physique seriously. I improved my diet. I increased my weightlifting routines. Each workout session was like eliminating fragments of accumulated frustration. I ran 10 kilometers daily in solitude, without headphones, just my breathing, my thoughts, and the rhythm of my sneakers against the pavement, marking a beat that said, "I am still here. I am rebuilding myself." She noticed, obviously. Initially, it was subtle observations, small, scattered phrases. "You live at the gym now. You do not even try to communicate anymore." What has you so happy these days? She said it with a half smile, pretending to joke, testing the waters, but she did not get the reaction she was looking for. I remained serene, distant, without hostility, without bitterness, simply unreachable. Then her transformation began. Her coldness turned into nervousness. The same silence she had used as a shield now affected her. She would come into the kitchen, and I would not be there. I eliminated the notes, the questions about her day. My routine was to arrive, shower, and lock myself in the guest room before 9, door closed, no lights, cell phone on airplane mode. The more I was absent, the more she became destabilized. One night she appeared in the guest room, standing in the doorway, arms crossed, and asked, "Are you upset with me?" I looked up from my book, maintaining my calm. "Why would I be? It is just that you seem like a ghost lately." I calmly bookmarked the page and replied, "How interesting. That is exactly how you made me feel for the last 12 months. She did not know how to respond to that. She blinked several times, stood motionless for a few seconds, and left. From that moment on, her behavior changed noticeably. She started preparing meals again. Music started playing again while she cooked. She started dressing up at home again, trying to recover that version of herself that had once made me fall in love. But the moment had passed. Have you ever tried to revive a fire that has been out for too long? My treatment of her was courteous, polite in my responses. I would answer when she spoke to me, but without getting truly involved. No games of seduction, no physical contact. I did not act with malice. There was simply nothing left. Until the day of my final departure arrived. On a Tuesday afternoon, I made sure she was at work, I packed a backpack, and I left without leaving any written explanation, without sending any message. I left only with my gym bag, the car keys, and the piece I had recovered. My friend Roberto welcomed me at his house for a while. He already knew the whole situation. For months he had been telling me, "Brother, you are worth more than this. She does not even appreciate you." And he was not wrong. His couch was my bed for a few weeks while I found my own place. A modest apartment, in a quiet area, zero complications, zero conflicts. I got basic furniture, a new mattress, and several houseplants. It may seem ridiculous, but the morning ritual of watering them became therapeutic. Giving life to that new space contributed to my healing. Carmen's reaction was, to put it mildly, devastating. She tried to contact me 17 times that first night. The voicemails piled up, her voice breaking, pretending to be calm. "We need to talk. What are you trying to do with this? Are you trying to teach me a lesson?" My silence continued. The text messages arrived early the next day. "If you needed distance, why not talk about it?" I recognized my coldness. "I did not realize the harm I was causing you. Do not do this silence to me. I cannot breathe. I cannot breathe." Exactly my feeling for so long, yearning for affection, tenderness, warmth while she showed weariness at every effort to keep our relationship alive. And now, precisely now, she could not tolerate the same silence she had once used against me. I did not block her from my phone. I was not trying to play any psychological games. I simply did not answer because any word at that moment would have seemed like an open door, and going back was not an option. The following week, she showed up at my workplace. Yes, completely desperate. She came to the entrance of the office complex where I work, her eyes teary, her voice shaky. "Carlos, I need you to listen to me." I went out to meet her, serene, controlled. Her appearance was terrible, ruined makeup, ragged breathing, messy hair, evidencing sleepless nights. She held my gaze and confessed, "I did not value what I had. I understand my mistakes, but do not destroy what we have." My response, I looked at her without resentment, without satisfaction, just honesty. I told her, "You rejected me systematically for 12 months. You treated my presence like a nuisance. I am not destroying anything. You already did that a long time ago. I am just now accepting the reality." She broke down completely right there in the middle of the parking lot with uncontrollable tears, desperately asking what she could do to fix it. But there was no going back because when a man truly withdraws, when he really leaves, it is not out of spite, it is personal dignity. It is ironic how someone who once considered your closeness excessive now drowns in your absence. Exactly what happened to Carmen. My total indifference quickly revealed her vulnerabilities. Her initial strategy was to feign normalcy, casual messages from time to time, pretending we were going through a temporary crisis as if my absence were a tantrum I would eventually get over. But it was not a passing crisis, it was liberation, and deep down she understood that. The first 7 days after my departure, she tried the soft tactic, texts like, "We should talk, and your absence is weighing on me." My silence persisted, not for revenge, but because my emotional reserves were exhausted. It is impossible to rebuild when the other party has already burned the foundations. She did not know my current whereabouts. My exit was meticulous, leaving no traces, no documentary clues, no justifications. I evaporated subtly, in silence, but with an undeniable impact. And for someone accustomed to always having you available, that void becomes torture. During the second week, desperation took over. My phone did not stop. Constant calls, written messages, recorded audios, each one more frantic than the last. The tone had completely changed. She was no longer requesting dialogue. She was begging. One particular voicemail still resonates occasionally, not because it hurts, but because it showed the transformation between who I was and who I am now. Her voice was constantly breaking. "Carlos, I recognize all my mistakes. I admit my coldness towards you. I never imagined you would just vanish. I thought you would fight for us. I was completely wrong. I beg you, just call me. I feel like I am going crazy without you." The problem was this. She expected me to fight for something when she had thrown in the towel a long time ago. She wanted me to pursue what she never cared for. But that man no longer existed in me. My silence was maintained. By the fourth week, her condition was critical. Mutual friends began to contact me. "Brother, Carmen will not stop asking about you. She says she has not been able to sleep for days. She is having a really hard time. You should consider it. Talk to her, even just once." What they were unaware of was everything that came before the silence. They did not witness the long period, entire years, of emotional abandonment. The nights waiting for some gesture of affection only to receive coldness, the constant rejections, the indifference, that feeling of being transparent in the home we built together. They did not see me deteriorate internally while pretending to be normal. So no, I did not owe her any closure conversation. She had already had it. She gave it to herself that night when she rejected my closeness and looked at me like a stranger. That was her real goodbye. She just had not processed it yet. The definitive moment occurred in public. On a Sunday at noon, I was in a central square with someone I had recently met. Her name was Sophia. She represented everything opposite to Carmen. Genuine warmth, real interest, an open heart. Affection was not a negotiation for her. She did not need to lose me to value my presence. We were sharing a bench, laughing about anything, simply enjoying the afternoon and our mutual company. Without drama, without performances, just two people connecting. Then I spotted her, Carmen, walking quickly, her gaze fixed on me, a mixture of anger and desperation painted on her face like an emotional storm. She did not hesitate for a second. She approached directly, completely ignoring Sophia, planting herself in front of me as if I had personally betrayed her by continuing my life. "Are you really here?" she said, her voice breaking at the end, trying to feign strength but already fragmenting. I stood up, without aggression, just serenity. "That is right. With her," she blurted out, glancing quickly at Sophia. I did not engage in confrontation. I just replied, "You have no authority to question that." And that was enough. Right there, she completely broke down. Tears streamed down in that instant, in front of strangers, under the midday sun, starring in a scene she never imagined living. "You were supposed to come back," she sobbed. "You were not supposed to just disappear. What we had," she interrupted herself, choking on her own breath. "What we had was real." I nodded my head. It was, but it lost its authenticity when you started treating me as if I were irrelevant. She moved closer, whispering now. I did not know how to fix it. I assumed you would always stay. I looked at her for a long time without anger, not even sadness, just understanding, and I expressed, "There is the mistake. You assumed my unconditional permanence no matter how much you pushed me away. My departure was self-protection, not an attempt to hurt you." She collapsed again, trembling between sobs. Sophia, who had remained silent, stood up, gently touching my shoulder. "I will give you space," she offered kindly, moving a few steps away. But I declined. "It is not necessary. Everything has been said. Carmen looked at me as if I had deeply wounded her. So this is how it ends. I shrugged my shoulders. It ended when you stopped trying. This is just the echo of that. She did not try to follow me when I walked away. She remained motionless, arms hanging, mouth half open, crying on that bench where years ago we used to sit together.